Thank you so much. Of course, we're coming to you still from the Nasrec Expo Center in the south of Johannesburg. And of course, this is the last day of the EFF's National People's Assembly. Of course, you now know who the newly elected leadership of the EFF is. It will be a short program today. Proceedings are expected to start at 9. There will be the declaration of the third NPA, followed by announcements and the closing address by Mr. Malema, who will be serving his third term. But just to unpack what we've seen last night, I'm now joined by political analyst Mr. Sandile Swana. Mr. Swana, you saw what happened yesterday. I think it comes as no surprise that we've seen this newly elected leadership once again.
Oh, thank you so much, Natasha. I happened to listen to one of the leaders from Mpumalanga before the elections, and they said that they've actually agreed at least with the certain three positions, being that of Malema, Goodrich Gadi, and Marshall Dlamini. And then we have seen also some of the more trusted women, three of them being put into office. So this is a top six. If I were to compare it to a meal, this is not a sizzling caviar. This is stiff porridge. It is not exciting. It is just solid and filling. It can put people to sleep well, the EFF people to sleep well at night, knowing that they've got a solid leadership. It may not be an exciting leadership, but it is a solid leadership.
Will this stiff porridge, as you characterize it, take the party to the next 5 years, and actually where the party wants to be in terms of rebuilding its structures, expanding its reach across South Africa as well?
I'm from assessing their reports and their statistics, I think this leadership is well able to do what needs to be done. And what needs to be done is to establish structures at each VD, a viable structure at each voting district, at each voting station. Also bringing the EFF to a lower level. So you cannot have an EFF leader who doesn't have actual physical support on the ground. We've seen for the past 30 years people whose actual support we don't know, including the state president. We hear that is from Shawela. We don't know how much support it gets. The Lindwesi Zulus of this world, these are people who came from exile with no branch, no roots anywhere. But holding power over the nation with no actual constituency that can even recall them. So the idea of building constituency-based leadership is the time for that. And you don't need reckless excitement all over the country. You need people who can put their nose down, put the shoulder to the wheel, and get their work done on a daily basis.
Mr. Swana, I know some people may take it as a light-hearted moment, but there was a delegate from Mpumalanga who had actually nominated herself for the position of deputy president. Of course, she didn't reach the threshold, but what do you make of that?
Yes, it's symbolic, but people must also accept that positions must be awarded according to merit. And in South Africa, unfortunately, merit is not something that is respected most of the time. On the side of women, we have 3 senior women and 3 senior men in the EFF, so that gender parity is there. But she was raising a different point, that there must be no position that is reserved. For instance, there had been a vacancy of deputy president, and she felt that maybe a certain woman can be there in that position. The EFF is under serious attack from an assortment of ethno-nationalists and certain types of right-wing organizations and white monopoly capital. Serious attack. So the EFF has taken a defensive position. So the people who go to the top, especially the 3, Marshall Dlamini, Goodrich Gadi and Malema, are going to be at the forefront of this battle against the forces of the right. In the past, there have been qualified women during times of war in South Africa, Winnie Mandela being one of them. So the women in the EFF have got to rise to that stature so that it is easy for them to automatically be elected to those positions of leadership, even during the most trying times.
Mr. Swana, you look at the composition of the Central Command team, which is the highest decision-making body in between conferences. Yes, it's expanded from 40 to 60. Are you happy with the composition and some of the people that are in there? You've got the likes of Sinawo Tambo, I think Mkhalipi comes back, Utebi from Ekurhuleni, who's also an MMC. You look at the caliber of the people there. What do you think about the CCT?
I haven't scrutinized the whole of it, but there are certain names, you are mentioning some of them, that I think represent a strong future for the EFF. Tambo is one of them. So the EFF does have a very strong contingent of young talent that over the next 10 years we are going to see them taking up leadership positions. However, you must remember that if you are taking, let's say, a senior position in 2034, you may be 30 now, you'll actually be entering your 40s in 10 years' time. So Malema was very young, maybe in his 30s when he started. This thing is already in his 40s, and so on and so forth. So there is maturity, there is stability, and there are qualifications, educational, formal educational, some of them quite relevant. So we're looking for those qualities in the EFF to lead in that section within South African society.
Mr. Swana, thank you so much for your time. Of course, that was Mr. Sandile Swana here, political analyst, who's been here throughout this weekend for the EFF's Third National People's Assembly. Of course, we will be with him throughout the course of the day, just unpacking and analyzing what we saw yesterday, but most importantly, that declaration of the NPA and the closing address from Mr. Julius Malema. With that said, let me link to this ad break.